Hey, good afternoon, friends. I think we'll get started. Thanks for joining in, and I think people will keep on joining. So, welcome to the knowledge sessions from the Digital Fifth, the Bharat FinTech Summit umbrella. So, today, primarily, we're going to discuss a very short knowledge session on the blockchain in day-to-day banking. Like, what's holding up the blockchain? It's almost like 12 years since the Bitcoin came and the blockchain came into prominence, right? And then after that, we have seen that multiple POCs, and we're talking about primarily on the BFSI segment. So that's we'll taking a look into that. And then we'll have a fireside chat with one of the experts into the blockchain with Sandeep Garg, who is building a Blostem, which is again on the blockchain-based decentralized finance kind of the infrastructure is being building. And he comes with wide experience of working the ICICI Bank and IndusInd Bank, driving the cash management business, and then taking a deep venture into the entrepreneurship and building in the complex area of the blockchain. So we'll have a fireside chat session and try to take a perspective from him. So with this, we'll get started. Yeah. So before that, I'm just quick intro from my side. I'm Shashank Shekhar. I take care of the consulting business at the Digital Fifth. And prior to that, I've worked with L&T Infotech and the Wipro, primarily into the cybersecurity compliance and technology advisory space. And then I joined DCB Bank, where that I looked after the complete infrastructure, the data center, then into the internet banking, the open banking, the complete digital transformation that I used to take care. And then after that, I joined in with Samir in the Digital Fifth. So Samir was also CTO at the DCB Bank, and then he moved on and started this venture. So it's almost 6 years now that we started this firm, and we'll just have a quick 2 minutes introduction on the Digital Fifth, what we do and who we are, right? So we started a journey in 2017 and then moved on to continue to build on our services, expanding into the training, hiring, partnership, and then also this year we did the Bharat FinTech Summit. We have been working predominantly in the India market, but also we have worked with the Middle East and Africa. Right, these are like broad customer lists that we have been working into different capacity, be it on the digital transformation, digital strategy with banks, program management, taking care of the major digital transformation projects. And also working with lots of the fintech and startup, helping them into the go-to-market strategy, the product strategy, their go-to-market plans, and that's where they've been doing. And then we've been doing lots of the training with corporates, be it on the open banking, the digital lending, digital transformation across all the different subjects falling into that digital space. Probably we have the 4 service lines where we work. The consulting is the prime one, that we, as I told, that work with banks, financial institutions, and the fintechs, helping them into the different capacity. Then we work lots of the partnership where we help the fintech startups to connect to the market, building the go-to-market strategy, building the brand visibility into the industry. And then the recruitment and the training is our other core services that we look into that. In the consulting, we primarily work into the digital advisory space, where that building on the benchmarking, digital maturity, building a complete digital strategy with the roadmap, doing the complete journey transformation from the digital perspective, and then also taking care of the program management. Open banking, we do lots of the work into the API space, where we're building the open banking strategy, building the neo banking models, creating that neo banking architecture, and lots of those things. And very much we do lots more work in the embedded finance. We're helping that any non-fintech startup building the financial capabilities, be it on the payments, lending, and any other financial services. Already spoken about the fintech and startup advisory, that where we help them into building the business model, go to market, helping them into the tech architecture and the CTO kind of the things. And we do some lots of some work in the security and compliance, and as well as the building the content. So that's a quick view. There's just a snapshot of the event that we did at Bharat FinTech Summits in February, where that primarily we invited all the CXOs, CDOs, fintech founders, and all these things. Huge participation, building on the discussing across different aspects on the banking and the finance in the digital space, right? And this quick glance on the training that's I already spoken about, right? And we coming with a complete program on certification on AML and the blockchain, which is starting on the 16th of April. During the sessions, we'll share the details, and you can if you are interested, you may register for the same. So that's where we're going to start on the AML. We'll have focus on the analytics, blockchain, building blocks, building the AI strategy. While in the blockchain, we'll go deeper into the blockchain fundamentals, emerging aspects of the blockchain, deep dive into decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, right? That's a quick focus area is always the build on the peer networking among the participants, learn from industry professionals, expert, and primarily is focused already very much on the use-based learnings, right? We don't try to get into the coding part of it or the how to you build the models and all of this, but what are the use cases and how the use cases can be built around the AML and the blockchain. So with this, just quick intro, it's over, and now we'll just get into the topics. I'll try to cover in the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll go into the fireside chat session with Sandeep, who is already there in the room, right? So in this session, we'll try to look into the blockchain adoptions, what are the use cases, what are the limitations, what kind of the role that different technology enablers play into that. So we all know, I don't need to go into the definition per se, right? But 2008, when the Bitcoin came into that prominence, everybody started thinking that, okay, Bitcoin is a blockchain or the blockchain is the Bitcoin. But we all know that blockchain was a distributed ledger technologies was the backbone behind the Bitcoin. So you can probably talk about that Bitcoin is more like a use cases built around that blockchain, right? And in primarily the fundamental principle that it carries into building the secure and decentralized transaction network, right? That's where that without that having not any intermediaries into the play, and that's where that lots of the focus comes into the banking industry, where that you try to look at that how do you can build that kind of the rail where that you may not require any intermediaries, right? Just a quick differentiation. So Bitcoin and blockchain are two different things, right? Bitcoin is more like in use cases built on the blockchain infrastructures, right? And all the other cryptocurrencies which have been built on the blockchain network. Well, Bitcoins, if you try to look at it, may have the anonymity built into that whole of the Bitcoin structure, while blockchain is primarily focused more on the building the transparency, right? So Bitcoin is only about the cryptocurrency and all the use cases around that cryptocurrency, like how do you make the payments, exchange, build your assets growth and degrowth, whatever is there, right? Well, blockchain allow you to do all the other things, everything building apart from the building the cryptocurrency on the network, you can do a lot more other things. And that's we'll try to look into that subsequent slides. Some of the use cases which have been very prominent, one is on the supply chain management, where that primarily anything moves from one place to other place. Like how do you secure that entire the transaction, entire the movement, and building that kind of the token structure on the blockchain so that everybody in the entire the supply chain cycle simply can do the verification that this is a genuine product which is moving from one place to other. One of the prominent example comes into the space of, and I'm talking about not financial, like Sahyadri farms you would have heard, right? So whenever the goods moves from the farms, its token structure get created, and that's been put into the network where the every participant who are there, that whether the mandi guys or the farmers, everybody can see the movement and they can see the verify the details on that platform. So supply chain management is heavily being used more in the especially TBers and kind of the guys also been using it heavily to tracking that purity of the diamonds which moves from the mine and it goes into the market, right? Lots of experiment has been done in the voting systems to try that genuineness of the voters and the genuineness of the voting which has been laid down. I think this similarly the way we are talking about the supply chain, I think copyrights and ownership protection, the blockchain has been heavily being used, like somebody is creating that any material around the music or arts or anything which can be converted into a token and can be tracked and to ensure that there is no piracy, there is no fake into that structure, right? Cryptocurrency, we all know that cryptocurrency has been there. Healthcare, to manage the healthcare records, to ensure that, okay, whatever the information is available that participant can see. Apart from that, within the healthcare, lots of the pharma companies have started adopting the blockchains primarily to reduce that any kind of the fake or the fake medicines being put into the market, right? So as soon as the medicines get manufactured from the plant, it can be put into the token structure, and as soon as it moves, that entire movement can be tracked down, right? And the lending and the payments, definitely we'll try to look more into details in the financial segment. So those are all the use cases that I've been talking primarily into that space of all the other industries, right? And these are like some snapshot, but there are more use cases around that. And now with the metaverse and that Web3 architecture evolving, NFTs and all these things, that we have started seeing the widening of the blockchain uses, right? On the financial, when we start looking into that, I think different industry reports talk about the multiple use cases, be it on from the money transfer, the clearing and settlement, KYC. So these are the typically top use cases always comes. Different banks have been always, be in India or across the globes, have been experimenting with blockchain technologies. Somewhere or other, they've been spending the money into that, create some kind of the use cases. And now this entire the focus is that, okay, how do you make it as a mainstream technology? The way you will have the APIs adoption, the way you will have the mobility analytics with you being used within the organization. How some of the use cases can be built around the blockchain, which can have the massive uses within the banking industry. So, and every bank has the clarity that, okay, whether it could be the for the cost saving purpose within that financial reporting or the business operation or the compliance. So when you start looking to the advantage that it brings on the table, definitely blockchain has been very prominent in terms of the very stable, strong technologies, right? And it's a definitely innovative infrastructure that has been created around that distributed ledger technology, right? Which try to bring in the increase of the efficiency. I'll give an example, like whenever you do a UPI transaction and when you see that, okay, the transaction has failed and the money has been debited, typically the refund process may take a good amount of time. So that may try to solve it out there. So to fast track the entire the refund process. I'm just picking up an example, but definitely it's one of the prominent benefits that it brings on the table is increasing the efficiency. Strengthening the regulatory compliance in terms of the KYC, AML, and all these things. Now we'll see in the subsequent slide that the lack of regulatory framework also may have a challenge, but definitely when it comes to following the regulatory compliance with respect to any of these guidelines which release and building, taking care of the blockchain infrastructure will help it to. I think security has always been the backbone of the blockchain infrastructure, right? Now you may have heard about that various incidents of the cryptocurrency breach or the data breach and all these things, but those are primarily again is about the interface, how the interface has been configured. But when it comes to the blockchain infrastructure, and then entire the whole of the architecture of the nodes and the chains, it allows that building that security deeper into that. In the cost, in terms of the because of primarily the intermediary absence in the whole of the process for any support that any financial transactions, it enables you to reduce the cost. Like look at the example, like the cross-border payments. Typically, cross-border payments when you're trying to transfer money from India, one bank to another bank in the US, it may hop through the multiple intermediaries, right? Including the SWIFT infrastructure, and then you will have that correspondent bank networks and all these things, and then it will move. And where that typically any single transactions will have like 2 to 4%, 5% of the commissions gets deducted at the different sources, right? And different interfaces. So that's where it may start helping into the optimizing your cost, right? And then definitely transparencies and building the tokenizations, like creating tokens with respect to any information which is there, which has been published in the blockchain. How do you secure and ensure that this information has not been compromised? So tokenization is another powerful advantage. So these are some of the advantages, makes it absolutely an apt case for the banking and financial. And that's why it has always been exciting bankers, technology teams within the banking and the fintechs and the financial space to continue to explore and look at that how it can be adopted and can be put it as one of the large use cases within the banking industry. A few of the use cases, again, will not try to go deeper into that, and that's where that primarily in the sessions which we are talking about the certification, we try to go deeper into each of the use cases, how this is being done. But these are like classic use cases like identity verification, and some of the banks have been experimented. Like, for example, if the KYC has been done and the KYC information has been published in the blockchain information, how the other participant can use that information and can confirm all the KYC, right? So that's kind of the identity verification use cases. Clearing and settlement, definitely, if that's every information is available on the infrastructure, which can be seen by all the participants. Definitely, the entire settlement process becomes very fast. The clearing becomes very fast because today, if you look at it, any transaction, be it on the UPI, NEFT, or RTGS, any kind of the transaction you look at it, multi-party participants are involved. Everybody has their transactions on their own respective systems. So typically, you will see many of you may be in the banking industry, and you will realize that every parties share their file with each other, and where the files are collaborated with each other, and they try to look into that how the settlement clearing can be done and the settlement can be performed. In fact, NPCI has also been working into the one of the reconciliation engine around the blockchain called Vajra, where that settlement can be done through the blockchain infrastructure. I think letter of credit and the bill of lading, which is like any shippers carry that documents for the verifications, right? So these are like typical documents which are being used to provide a financing, right? And that's where then if it's in the blockchain, it's brings that kind of the credibility about that documents. There is no fakeness to the documents, and then it's financiers can look into that genuineness and facilitate the lending, right? And the cross-border payments I've spoken about, which primarily try to eliminate intermediary as much as possible, right? And secure and transparent transactions, the claim processing, disbursement, credit predictions, smart contract. I think this is very useful use cases, which can be either into the lending where that you are making a loan agreement, or it could be anything, right? And I think decentralized finance, like popularly known as DeFi, right? And primarily I'll have a chat with Sandeep. We'll try to get deeper into DeFi, right? So these are the use cases are there, but since blockchain is not an easy technology, it's a complex, right? You require a technology support, technology handheld solutions around that who can help work with you and can help you to build use cases. So technology enablers are very important to all of these games and you need to work very closely with them, because they need to provide the entire secure and reliable cloud infrastructure, because that most of the blockchain infrastructure, either it could be on-prem or it can be built into the cloud, right? Building any kind of the blockchain solution where this will require any kind of the development or building that general distributed ledger within your organization, facilitate the transaction, you require the developers to be there, right? And also they help you to build the adoptions, managing that all the projects, right? And then configuring the security privacies, helping the training and education. So technology enablers are playing a bigger role. So you have other technology players like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, all have been working into that space, while you have the other players emerging like Blostem, which is there, or the Elementary and Prime Chain. These are also the next gen players which are trying to build and build the solutions around this. Or you may have the developer like Resolute, and there were many other similar kind of the players. So this entire ecosystem is also evolving around it, which potentially will try to push that entire the blockchain much wider adoptions, right? One of the, I think many of you may be aware that I think 2018 to push for the blockchain, and then since the inception of the Bitcoin, banks have been experimenting, right? They have been forming the consortium to come together, do the proof of concept, try to experiment to see that any use cases can be adopted. But I think very serious work has started when the Indian Bank's blockchain infrastructure company is an independent company, which with focus to build the use cases, build the complete blockchain infrastructures in participation with all the banks was created. And that has been trying to push very closely with the banks and build different use cases because you require multiple participant blockchain, as like it says, the distributed infrastructure, right? You need to have a multi-party architecture coming into the place where that all the parties can initiate the transaction, can view the transaction, can validate the transactions, right? So that's been IBBIC is working into that. Primarily, they have been using that Infosys Finacle Connect platforms and the other technology players like IBM's, and I'm not sure, a few others are also working with its companies to build that infrastructures, right? Okay, so primarily they are looking into various use cases, including the trade finance, where the letter of credit, GST invoices, eBay bills can be used to finance the customers. The entire focus is to bring the efficiency, security, and transparency, but more to that, how to bring the participation, because that has been always, you can't build that entire blockchain wider use cases without coming that multi-party architecture coming into the place, right? In a standalone basis, you may not be able to create that wider use cases. You may do that certain things, but you need to have the multi-party infrastructure where that everybody is participating into that transaction, where that is entire the focus of IBBIC is to build that kind of the common infrastructures, you can call it, among all these banks put together. I know, so some of the bankers have been very participating into that space, and they're working very closely with each other. I think they've already made the trade finance infrastructure live where that any invoice or any letter of credit can be validated, issued by one bank to the other bank. Some of the other popular use cases which have been primarily done, your proof of concept, and we yet to see to take them into the larger adoptions, like so trade finance, ICICI Bank has done a few. So this is other than the IBIC. So that's, we know that lots of the work has been done in the trade finance by the ICICI, and you can start seeing that some of the advertisement also that's they keep coming, right? I think Tech Mahindra and IBM has worked together coming on the building the entire the supply chain finance, where that any invoice which has been raised on the platforms can be validated, and that can primarily involved by creating the tokens to that invoices, so that the same invoice can't be used for the same with the other parties for the financing. So that's where that they've been working together and build that entire the supply chain finance infrastructure. NAC is experimented with electronic KYCs, document management, primarily working with the close with some of the banks. And the cross-border payments, Ripple, you might have heard the names, which is trying to build a blockchain infrastructure to facilitate the cross-border money movement across from the different banks. And many of the banks across the globe, with respective countries, been part of the Ripple. So India also, some of the banks have been working with the Ripple to see that how the money can be transferred from one country to other country. At the Deloitte, I think this primarily we saw that some of the use cases been built into the royalty and rewards programs. So, but it's now time to how to look at it, that some of the use cases go into the wider use cases, like, and people like me and you are also participate to the whole of the process of the blockchain-based infrastructures. So future, I think the future looks pretty good. Now, I think it's the era of the experiment is over. Now people have realized that potential. Now it's need to figure it out the way to now make it work, make it because potential is there. The experiment has been done. People have learned through the process. The technology solution providers are there. The enablers are there. So I think the ecosystem is now pretty good, ready, right? And the confusion about the crypto and all these things has been there. So I think that's where the things will start moving. So that's probably the message that we'll see that, and government and as well as the RBI is also trying to explore how the things can be moved into the blockchain, certain of the use cases, which can be used by the BFSI also to push back, right? Push entire adoptions. Just a quick glance, I think lots of the work is happening into the India with the various states was trying to build on the land registry, right? And this is very important from the secured lending perspective. Most of the banks, if you look at it in the country, provide lending services based on that land property loan against the property, right? And one of the critical component comes into the verification of the property, and it is a time conversion process where that you need to verify the ownership as well as you need to verify that commercial value for that. So that's where that I think blockchain infrastructure, when it gets built, where that all the land records are registered, all the property details are registered on the blockchain infrastructure. And the same infrastructure extended to the banking community, where that any information can be validated, any property records can be, ownership can be verified on the infrastructure. It will facilitate the lending to the faster track, because any secured lending, when it comes to property loan against the property, it is a time consuming process, right? So that's where I think it will support. I think it has also some of this infrastructure which is working from the government infrastructure may facilitate the chain fund operation and some of the decentralized governance, healthcare records. So I think time will tell that how this whole infrastructure get pushed, and the complete records or complete information has been put in place, because we all have seen that as soon as the government infrastructure get widely adopted, like the GST, we have seen like GST came as one of the platforms where that invoicing infrastructure got created, and in fact the entire the taxation ecosystem was created. You could see the lots of the use cases around the lending start getting building on the GST data, right? So I think that's where that it will show the potential. But last just a bit, I think we have spoken a lot and gone pretty fast, but I just want to spend more time with discussion with Sandeep, because he's building the solution. But I think one of the challenges there, it still has some challenges and limitations, right? I think when it comes to scalability, everybody has doubt that, okay, can it take care of the load of the transactions, especially in the payments, because banks will be operating at the volumes, right? So that's where sometimes the doubt comes that it can take, like Bitcoin and crypto. You may not have that kind of the volumes, right? But here people may start having a doubt about the volumes. But I think infrastructure, the way technology is evolving, the processing capabilities of the core infrastructure is continuing to grow. I think that limitation may come down. I think still the cost of implementation and manageability remain pretty high. That's where that I think I'm not talking about the transactional cost, but entire putting that entire the development, setting up the infrastructure, build the solutions around thing. I think the cost and manageability, right? Managing that because you require a right skill set, you require a kind of the technology ecosystem, solution ecosystem players who can help you do that, and that's we create the manageability aspects, right? Because the other side, you look at the traditional technology infrastructure, you build a solution, you will have always have a kind of the skill set, experience to manage it, right? But when it comes to the blockchain, one of the things, how you're going to manage it, right? Interoperability, I think interoperability is another challenge which primarily everybody is trying to solve, and interoperability among the different blockchain infrastructure, as well as along with your core technology stack that you will have, right? Both the technology have to work together, because today, if you look at it, any banks, the core digital infrastructure or the technology infrastructure, that entire the communication along APIs have been built around, right? That makes that entire any transaction flow or the journey is very seamless. That's where that I think interoperability will always have a challenge among that interoperability among the different blockchain infrastructure as well as with respect to your the core infrastructure. And I think last not the least, I think this will always be one other challenge that people, most of the banks or the financial may not have the clarity that how this entire the regulatory framework will evolve, the legal framework around will evolve. Let's say, for example, a smart contract. Now, any loan agreement can be converted into a smart contract, tokenized, and put it on the blockchain infrastructure. But will it have a kind of the legal validity? Always there is a doubt in the mind, right? Because now you have the clarity that any agreement signed through the e-sign, which goes through that entire the NPCI, NSDL framework and all this thing, you know that there is a legal standing among the court, right? But here, smart contract will have the legal standing. I'm just taking one example as example, right, of the smart contract. So I think legal framework and the regulatory clarity is a challenge. So that was just a bit of just looking at the quick snapshot around that, what's happening, what are the use cases are there, and where do we see things moving up, and what are the challenges. These are the things we'll go deeper into that when we start in next week, the sessions with starting AML and blockchain. We'll try to go deeper into that. Now AML will focus more on the analytics side. In the blockchain, we'll try to go deeper into these all these aspects. So with that, I'll take a pause here, and then we'll go into the fireside chat session with Sandeep, and also we'll open a floor for the questions. Any other questions? I'm sure many will have lots of the questions. So with this, welcome Sandeep, and thank you for being here. Okay.
Hi Shashank, how are you?
Yeah, all good. Thanks. So Sandeep has been building that Blostem, and think. So Sandeep, before I get into any particular questions, as an industry expert into working in this blockchain and very closely associated with the entire the consortium in the country, what is your perspective that how this entire the adoption is current state? What is that adoption level? How the banks are looking into the blockchain? Maybe just given a very open insights.
Sure. So thanks Shashank for inviting me, and thanks for this very nice overview on the state of blockchain, because I feel you did a very good job of capturing the entire canvas of where we are and what the challenges also. So in terms of the banking side, see, ultimately you have to see from the perspective of the RBI and the government, the finance ministry, RBI. So they are very, I will say, they are the biggest proponents of usage of blockchain. If I talk about the Indian market, even compared to the corporates, I will say it's the government which is pushing for adoption of blockchain, right? And the proof is our launch of our own retail CBDC last year, right? So what can be bigger than that? Now, in terms of where we are, so I feel right now we are at the stage where blockchain as an infrastructure will probably get built as a public good, digital public good, right? So just to give context to the all the participants over here, there are two types of blockchains. So one is considered as a permissionless blockchain, right? Or sometimes people call it a private blockchain also, as the government calls that. And another one is a permission blockchain, or you can call it an enterprise blockchain. So the permissionless blockchain is like Ethereum, Polygon, Bitcoin, all those protocols. Now, if I were to build an application on top of that, I did not spend money to build that infrastructure. So those nodes, that immutability, that keys, the hardware wallets, everything is in place, right? So I can deploy, create an application, create a use case, and deploy my solution on top of that. But over there are a lot of regulatory challenges are there. The lack of clarity is there that what is allowed, not allowed, especially when it comes to dealing with public money and dealing with banking related use cases, right? Because the banks will want 100% clarity on everything. And right now, let's say when we talk about US markets, so US is also challenging, say, stablecoin issuers today over there because they are trying to come up with their own stablecoin. So, anyways, so that's a very different discussion altogether. Now, when it comes to our, say, banking and this financial ecosystem, so it is very clear that it has to be an enterprise blockchain or what we call it permission blockchain, where there are protocols like Hyperledger Fabric or R3 Coda, to name a few. Now, the challenge is when you have to deploy something on these platforms, so these are just protocols. So you have to create nodes, you have to write the security aspects, you have to com- create the infrastructure completely from the scratch, right? And that is where the cost of the implementation will go up. And that is where what happens is now, for example, Shashank mentioned about multiple use cases which multiple banks are working on, but these use cases are actually like islands on their own. So and these islands are not connected with each other. Now, to counter that, what the future holds is, and what, say, likes of RBI Notion Hub, RBI METI, IDRBT, right, and even iSpirit, all these guys are working on laying down a foundational infrastructure for blockchain. For example, today iSpirit is working on something called as Badal, Bharat Digital Ledger. So this Bharat Digital Ledger will become a privacy preserving, trustful commerce and interoperable fabric on which we can have a programmable preserving e-commerce, right? And then obviously the banking part comes in. Now we have CBDC. So CBDC becomes a plug in that Badal network as a payment layer. Similarly, METI and IDRBT are working on a unified blockchain framework for India. Now, for example, at Blostem, what we are trying to do, we are trying to create a solution by tokenizing assets of the user and enabling digital secure loan against that, right? Now, when we basically integrate with asset issuers and lenders, we have to set up these networks, the nodes. Now, this network will be as strong as the number of nodes are there, right? Now, and that is where the complexity also comes. So imagine if we there were already these nodes with all the banks were already there, and our application was just sitting on top of that using that infrastructure. The way if I were to use, say, Ethereum platform, I would not spend money on creating my Ethereum blockchain from the scratch, right? But for public, for the banking use cases, you have to do that, and that is where the complexity comes. So when we go to a bank will say, boss, I already have invested and I'm running a node for this use case. Now you guys, for your use case, we have to have another node, right? And now the question, so technically the still answers are there. Technically, we can use the same node and work with that. Now the question comes on governance, because on the node, we are getting technical over here because all these applications can work as separate channels, right? Where what information should flow across these multiple chains, even that can be decided. But the question is who decides that, right? So then it's a question of governance, right? I will say it's not as much as a technological issue, as much as a unified governance framework which is required, right? And then the participants can start working on top of that. So, for example, when I talk about technology, right, why technology is ready for this. So, RBI Innovation Hub did one POC last year, where already EBIC, as you mentioned, is working on trade finance, digital domestic trade finance use case, right? So, they basically had R3 Coda uh, and your which one? Hyperledger Fabric and another chain, right? So they did a POC with them, to test the interoperability as well as the scalability and the faster settlement aspects, right? And all three of them were successful. In fact, as per the POC outcome, the transactions were took 1/5 less time compared to a traditional mechanism, right? So in that sense, technology is there. Technology can support these frameworks, right? But what is required? The governance framework. Now, and now RBI has come up with their own hackathon 2.0, where again they are basically asking participants to come up with solutions to increase the scalability and interoperability. So from that perspective, where I see this is right now, government is very, when I say government, RBI, and all these institutions, they're working to basically create a foundational layer of blockchain, right? And on top of that, then participants like us can come and use those framework and build those applications on top of that. So I think this is where we are right now.
Super. I think you gave a pretty deep insight into that how the things are shaping up. And I myself, I didn't know about it, this thing, because I always firm believe that you need to have the kind of the infrastructure, a single again, common infrastructure layer coming into that. Yeah, common layer coming into that, and that's where some of this high spirit or the meaty when build it, because nobody wants to build on their own because it may not be feasible. Like say, ICICI bank wants to build in a kind of the infrastructure may not be possible, right? And so that's definitely. So I'll go continue the discussion. Meanwhile, I request all the guys, the team has shared the feedback form into the chat. Please share your feedback. Your feedback are always valuable, and I will share the deck also with the guys who will share the feedback. So thank you. Please share your feedback. So now look at this. So how do you see that? What are the different use cases you see when this kind of a common layer infrastructure or unified framework get built and do that? What are the use cases like all these participants are visualizing, including the banks and the fintechs and also the enablers like you guys? What are the different use cases that you are foreseeing? And I'm looking at the more of the use cases which will have a wider adoption, not on the just a POC kind of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, see, what I feel is, so number one aspect is, say today, so government came up with again this DEPA related framework on data empowerment and protection architecture, right? Where the view of the government is, and rightly so, that today the architecture is that there are central service providers, including say banks, or it can be a corporate like a Amazon or a Google, right? So they are the centralized service providers. And as a user, when I'm working using their services, I become basically a data provider to them, right? And that becomes a wall garden for me. Now, since I am logged into their environment only, right, they start exploiting the users. Now, the DEPA framework is that the user should be in control of their data, and they should be able to seamlessly see that which participant or which service provider gives me the best offer. Very simple example, uh, account aggregator framework came in, right? So account aggregator framework is actually is basically addressing this issue only. But I feel that is just the start, right? Now, account aggregator framework itself. So one is that it can also be built on blockchain also, right? So that's a more of a technological thing. But now the version one of account aggregator is that I, as a user, my data is with multiple financial institutions. I want to take a loan from someone else. That guy wants to do a better underwriting on me. So I can give access to my data to this person, to this lender in a very, very seamless way after my consent. And then that guy can take a call that whether he wants to give me a loan or not. Otherwise, without this framework, the data is provider or my original institution, which where I am banking with, they had asymmetric information on me, right? Now, if you take it forward, one of the use cases can be that this data itself can be tokenized, right? So it's just not the data, it's also about customers' assets. Customers today have own multiple kind of assets. So they may be owning 3 FDs with multiple banks. They may be owning some gold, some property. Right? So for example, we talked about land records, right? So land record is digitized. Imagine all this is digitized and everything is tokenized. Now, when I'm going to a lender, the lender can give me a loan proposal by 360-degree evaluation against that. So today, what is happening is, in terms of the use case, as a customer, I'm sliced and diced. When I go to a bank for a loan, bank will say, okay, I'll give you a personal loan. When the bank is giving me a personal loan, my assets don't matter at all, right? It's just on my CIBIL score and my credit history and my income. When I'm taking a loan against an FD, the bank doesn't consider my income. The bank does not consider my other assets that I hold, right? And when I'm taking loan against gold, the same is the story. Now imagine a scenario, as a customer, I'll be able to give all my collateral as a token to a lender, right? And the lender will be able to give me a much better term of loan. And in that single instance, all my assets will be collateralized as part of that loan in a single instance. Now that's step one. Now, since we are talking about decentralization, this lender may or may not be bank also. It can be a P2P loan also, right? So for example, we will be covering DeFi. So in DeFi, this is what is happening now, right? So there was a very popular saying, right, amongst the banks on the future, whoever are the futurologists, they say the banking will remain, whether the banks will be there or not, or the shape will change, right? So the banking on blockchain has already started. So for example, there's a protocol called Goldfinch. Uh, all the viewers can look it up. So they have already have 100 million worth of lending, right? Uh, and the lenders are crypto holders, right? But they are giving loan to people who are having assets in the real world. So the assets can be, I may be holding some kind of debt instrument with me or some kind of physical asset. I'm tokenizing that and I'm giving that as a collateral and getting a loan. And when you cut the middleman down, the rate of interest can be much more favorable for both the liquidity provider also, and for the lender as well, right? And the borrower as well, sorry. So these kind of use cases can emerge. So that is number one. The another aspect, if I can take some time, is fractional ownership of assets. Now, this is going to be this is already started, and security token offering is already regulated in many countries. And I'm sure India will also have that regulation in place. Now imagine, we all know, for example, Gurgaon market is very good from real estate investment perspective, but we do not have, say, crores of rupee to invest into that. Now those buildings can be tokenized as real world assets. You can invest into them, right? You can earn appreciation, you can earn rental yield on top of that. And you can also use that token as a collateral to get a loan, instant loan, if in case you require, right? Now imagine if I have a 1 crore worth of house and I require 5 lakh rupees as a short-term borrowing. I don't have any assets on me. I don't want to take a 20% personal finance, right? Can I give 5 lakh worth of my property as a token and get a loan at 9% and then free it after 5 months? So these are the kind of things that can open up.
Super. I think this is interesting. So I think I'll pick up a few questions is also coming on the room chat. Meanwhile, I just pick up the question again. Sincere request to all participants to share your feedback. It's always helpful for us to keep improving ourselves and keep building on the new contents, right? So I think Shobik is asking. Shobik goes. Is there any opportunity that where the microfinance can also be benefited from the adoption of blockchain? Any idea, Sandeep, that you have seen any MFI or be it in India or outside that way been working?
Microfinance, I'm aware that probably in Telangana, there's one entity which is working on it. Personally, we have not looked at it, right? Yeah, but there is an entity working on it. So probably I can share you the name after this session. And
You see that kind of some use cases or some adoption can be there in the microfinance as well, because they are like a small tickets loans and all these things, and definitely, and maybe the blockchain infrastructure can help us to reduce the cost of underwriting, cost of onboarding the customer, cost of collections and all these things, right? Because
yeah,
that's where the
absolutely.
microfinance.
Actually, as part of the bank, I've worked with microfinance very, very closely. And
Yeah.
and microfinance loan, as we know, it's 25% plus kind of loan which is there, and primarily 10 to 12% of the interest cost is due to their operational cost. And the operational cost comes from the fact that you have to meet your customers every week, because it's more of a social lending. And the second part is it involves collection in cash, right? Now, for reduction of collection in cash, actually, we are working with one of the entities as an advisor called Extopay, right? Which has a solution to digitize last mile cash, and they are again using blockchain as a protocol on top of that. Say today, the challenge is that while at the customer level, the disbursement of the loan is happening to the customer in his bank account, but the next day that the borrower will go to a kirana shop and take out all the money using AEPS, and all their spending and income within that village is happening in cash only. So the EMI collection is primarily again cash, because while you can set up NACH or UPay, AutoPay, all that kind of on their bank account, but the bank account doesn't have money, right? So, but now if you can come up with an instrument, now those people don't have smartphones, don't internet may not be there with them, right? So that's why the UPI kind of instruments, the way they are today, doesn't work for them. So that's why they are using cash. Now, if there's a protocol system which can enable P2P payments to these guys in a digital manner without the requirement of internet or without the requirement of mobile, without even telephone, right? So over there, you can achieve something. So Extopay is actually working on a POC for northeastern states to do that. So yeah, so that is one of the aspect microfinance.
No, thanks, Sandeep. That's a very interesting question. I don't know who has asked because I can't see the person here, and it's question is also about anonymity, and question is also, so can we tokenize and have atomicity without smart contract on blockchain? I didn't understand much of the questions. It's atomicity or anonymity. I think this person is not there, so maybe we'll just skip the question. Is there any question, guys? You can just put it in the Q&A and I'll try to pick it up as we continue to the discussions. So Sandeep, I think one of the things I wanted to touch upon the DeFi, and you pretty well cover about that, and you spoke about, and I think DeFi shows definitely some of the lots of potential in the future. Now just going back, one of the critical component also, it comes to the skills, right? When you're trying to build into the digital transformation in the bank or analytics, all those things, you can get the skills, right? And skills, I'm talking about the both in terms of the individuals who are working within the banks across the product management or the technologies or across any other functional, as well as the enablers like you guys and all these things. So how do you see that banks or financial institutions are working on to building that skill development within and how critical it is to build that skill development, and also the ecosystem of the enablers evolving? So maybe you just try to spend some time there.
No, absolutely. So, so that is one of the another challenge areas today, right? Because while today at the initial level, everyone knows now what is blockchain, but at a practical level, what will it take for adoption, and what are the kind of say risk associated or even opportunity which can emerge out of that? So that is where the gaps are. So, for example, when we were implementing our solution with one of the banks, it has taken us a lot of time because, say, for example, if you're going through InfoSec audit, now InfoSec audit, their entire protocol or their entire guideline is written around a centralized architecture, that this is the bank central architecture. And as a fintech partner, that is your centralized architecture and how our architectures will interact with each other and what are the failure points and security points, roles and responsibility, all that stuff. But when we talk about a decentralized architecture for deploying a blockchain, so that training is not there, that entire understanding is not there. And as participants who are working in this space, you have to do that training from the scratch for all the, and it is just not about the tech team, you have to do it for the compliance team, for the risk team, for the business team, for everyone. And that is what again is one of the challenges, as you mentioned earlier, that while the building blocks are there, POCs are there, but why it's not taking time, the other challenges. Now, to answer to your question that how it can be rectified, I feel like people like you, the courses that you are promoting, and there are other courses as well. And apart from that, I will also urge that most of the innovation which is coming at as a very, very fast pace, will come from, say, the DeFi world or the crypto world only. It's coming from there and it's getting adapted over here, right? So the original source of information is there. So and the good part about this technology, it's completely open source. So all these platforms have their white papers, right? And if you can start reading those white papers, you will get a lot of information that where they are coming from. And then they have their GitHub repositories also there for the people who are the tech side. So they can actually go and see at the code level what is happening. And it is all documented, explained very, very well. So I feel that's the primary source. And then we have curated courses like what Digital Fifth has, and there are other courses as well. And then there obviously there are books are there. But yeah, this is the space, and I think that's the way.
No, I think and that's where we try to differentiate in our course. Like most of the courses available, we help you definitely, and there are good courses where how to set up that entire the blockchain infrastructure. We try to focus on that how you able to use those infrastructure, right?
Absolutely.
That's more of the business side of the things. That's focus.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Sandeep. Again, I'll continue to keep on putting a request that if, please share your feedback. We still have not got much of the feedback, so thank you guys for putting the feedback. And I think we have got another question again coming from the Shobik. I think, and it's in Shobik is, so I'll maybe try to connect with him. So he said initial cost in terms of the infra server intensive will be high in terms of the blockchain implement. What are the considerations for a small to mid-size NBFCs? So probably he's again talking from
No,
that.
example. Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So that's what. So and in fact, Blossom. So this is one of the challenges also we identified that there are entities who want to do blockchain, right? Who want to use blockchain, who at least want to get started, and who want to see one is these government level initiatives, RBI level initiatives, but every NBFC is also want to explore multiple use cases. Now, can there be a solution which can be an asset light model? So for example, blockchain has the promise that you can have immutability of data, transparent verification of data, right? But to achieve that, you need to set up all these multiple nodes and entire infrastructure. And that is where we are coming up with a product. We're calling it Be Verify, right? And to actually counter those points where I've mentioned that to have immutability, you need to have multiple nodes. So we are going for a hybrid architecture model where we have a private node which will basically ensure data privacy for the NBFC. But then we link our chain with a public blockchain like a Ripple or a Polygon to achieve that level of decentralization immutability also, right? So we are coming up with a product like this very soon, where any entity who wants to have a very asset-light model, wants to use blockchain, will be able to deploy blockchain. And this is what will emerge from the market.
So maybe continuing in the interest of the other participants, maybe we can just give quick side that what are you building in the Blostem?
Right. So at Blossom, see, we are building a couple of things. So one I mentioned is the asset tokenization platform, and the asset tokenization platform that so initial MVP implementation is already done. We are waiting for the bank's final okay to go live, but that implementation is done. So where we are tokenizing fixed deposit of the bank and enabling collateralized loan against that, and in a completely decentralized kind of architecture. So for example, just to give an example, let's say I go to Amazon and I want to buy a mobile phone. Now I don't have a credit card, I don't have cash in my bank account. So the mobile phone is worth 50,000 rupees. Now but I have fixed deposit with three banks, say 20,000, 20,000, 10,000. Now, what are my options? There is one option that I can go for a BNPL kind of a loan, but the BNPL guy can only give me a loan worth 10,000 rupees because he doesn't have that much data on me. Now, one of the option was I can go to my bank, take a loan against FD from my bank, an OD line of 20,000 rupees, and take it from three banks, and then take that money and go to Amazon and buy the phone. That is one. The second option is I can take out all my FDs, break them, and then go for a loan, right? All these are very manual and tedious processes. So what we are building is at that time, the BNPL entity will be able to take my FD as a collateral, in a seamless manner to take those FD tokens as a collateral and give underwrite a 50,000 rupee loan. So that's one of the use case that we are building. And so FD's starting one, we are tying up with one entity for tokenizing the real estate certificates, which a state government is issuing, and we can do a collateral loan against that as well, and we can have fractional ownership of that certificate also. So this is one aspect. So, and now what we are doing is, so we were initially focusing on this segment itself, but we are now widening the scope for alternative investments as well. So that tokenization platform can basically tokenize anything, right? And then connecting with a collateralized lending protocol. So that is the product number one. And product number two that we're building is a B-Verify. B-Verify product is a very simple, low cost, low infra cost, low cost kind of product, where any entity who wants to achieve immutability of data, right, or transparent verification of data. Now that data can be in digital form or it can be a physical document form as well. We'll be able to do it. I'll give you one very simple example. Yesterday, I was having one conversation with one of the distribution partners, and I was telling him that we work with one of the banks and their fixed deposits. You'll be able, and you as a distributor, you can sell it, and we'll give you a web platform, and then we can say that okay, this is a partnership with so and so bank. But that guy basically told me that the kind of customers that we have, how will they actually trust that you actually have a partnership with that bank, because it is your platform which is saying so, right? So I had an idea that can we create a digital banner? You can call it a digital NFT, you can call it whatever, right? Which is now being issued by that bank itself. And that digital NFT says that Blostem is the official partner of so and so bank. And that NFT banner is placed on my app. And any user, when they click it, they can actually see that, yes, he's actually a partner. I'm just trying. So these,
that's very interesting.
yeah, so, and nothing like that exists today, right? Because when you think anything digital, you actually do not know whether it is legit or someone is faking it. And now we are with this open architecture, open banking architecture, the service providers are, the bank is the main issuer of the asset, but then there is an aggregator like us, and then there's a distributor, and then there's a customer at the end. So how does the transparent verification happen at the last level? So B-Verify basically solves for that.
No, thanks, Sandeep. So I think with this, we come to the end. And thanks, Sandeep, for spending time. And every time I speak to you, I think my trust in the blockchain for the future, it goes pretty high, right? I think the future looks pretty bright. And that's why we also keep on investing into that. So thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you all participants. Again, a sincere request, if you can share your feedback, that would be good. And those who share feedback, we share the deck back with them. So this is the deck we have shared. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you. Pleasure.